So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, and their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us Katie Geddes, who's owner and director at the Dance Studio Leeds. So, firstly, Katie, thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to start by introducing yourself, the Dance Studio Leeds, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Lovely. Good morning. Thank you for having us. So I run the Dance Studio Leeds. So we've been going for 15 years now. I think that's right. We get my dates right. We basically are primarily an adult-based studio. So we don't do a huge amount with children. It's more an adult focus. And we do services like fitness and dance classes. We do wedding dance tuition. We have hen and stag parties. We do team building events for businesses. We have dancers that go out and perform like at award ceremonies and events. And so basically anything to do with dance is that maybe businesses or adults basically want to engage with. So so it's quite busy, it's quite full on. We also work with as well, we have 3 studios, and the big part of the business is that we hire out the studios. So we have lots of engagement with companies coming in and rehearsals, and local dance companies coming in to rehearse for projects and things like that. So it's a bit of a mishmash of stuff, but anything dance basically.
Wow, that sounds both fun and very busy. It sounds wonderful. So for primarily, obviously, we're people that watch as are business people. So you do things like team building exercise, or people that want to come and learn to dance, or a type of a particular.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. So what makes a great client for you? What would be a great sort of client that might be interested in your services?
I suppose we've got a few really. So it depends, dipping different pies. So like you mentioned, the businesses and the corporates is a big one. So we've just done a commissioned dance performance piece for the Family Business Awards. I don't know if you know those guys, but they did the Auction Humberside Awards at the Royal Armouries, and we did the opening piece. So they have a theme each year, and they commissioned us to create a piece around their theme. People that are organising events is one. And then for the team building, we just had a company come in last week, for example. They just wanted to do something a bit different for their Christmas party, and it was very much about just doing something fun and engaging and all having a bit of a laugh together. So they learned a routine. So businesses that are looking for events like that is another side of us. But then we also do things like community stuff. So we've had the Yorkshire cricket team in. They've done some dancing with us before as well. So
Brilliant.
again, just kind of like up a bit of team bonding and something just a bit different, maybe out of people's comfort zones, and challenging them to try different things. But then we've also got kind of what we call, I suppose, General Joe, if you like, who works in the day but doesn't enjoy the gym, and they want to do a dance class, and they might have done it when they were little, and they're sort of like, oh, just always love dancing, and they come back to it. Or it might be somebody that's never danced before but has, always fancied having a go, and they're also equally, a very valued client of someone coming in. So we've kind of got different pots of different, depending what the service is. If someone's getting married, then we'd be looking for them as well. So yeah.
Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. It's funny when you said that, because I like to think I've got quite a large comfort zone. I'm fairly comfortable in many areas, but the idea of trying to dance would probably stretch that very far. So, but it'd be great. It's
Oh,
great
well,
to
you're
know
my
that.
perfect.
Absolutely, it's great to know someone like you can help. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Katie, if we start with looking backwards a little bit in terms of your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I always danced when I was little. I was kind of one of those that did the traditional local dance school when I was about 3, and went with my mum, took me to countless events and shows, bless her, and made costumes and all that kind of thing. And then when it got to kind of university age, I suppose it was deciding where do you go from there, and I didn't really have anything else that I wanted to do. I just wanted to dance, and it was a bit contentious in with my parents, because one was like, yes, go for it, follow your dreams, and the other was very kind of like, let's be practical. How are you gonna pursue a career in dance? And
Yes.
but anyway, I've decided to give it a crack basically, and I ended up going to a musical theatre and dance college in Nottingham called MAD. And I did my musical theatre training there, which is like a diploma. So it was like all day singing and dancing and acting. And then at the same time, I did some teaching qualifications, like in an evening study. And then when I left there, I ended up freelancing for a little bit around the UK mainly, and then kind of settled into Leeds because I had a dance connection through work here. And then the studio kind of came about because, I mean, I'd always wanted to have a studio. And Debbie Moore, if you know Pineapple Dance Studios in London, is a massive inspiration for me. So it was always kind of one of those things, oh, it'd be nice to have a dance studio one day. Probably a bit kind of, throwing the idea out there. And then it was literally, it sounds really cheesy, but it was literally like a light bulb moment, because the place that one of the groups that we rehearsed at, they were like, oh, where we normally go is going to shut down. And at that time it was like a Pilates studio, so it wasn't dance related, but we just happened to use their room. And we were like, oh, where are we going to go? There's not many options. And then I just thought, oh, I could maybe like take it on. And this was like about the Wednesday. And by the Sunday, I'd signed a lease, or the following Monday, sorry, I'd signed a lease. So it was all quite quick transition. Because they were like, well, you need to decide quickly if you're going to do it, because we can let certain people know the room's still going to be around. So, and I literally had a meeting with the landlord at the time a couple of days later, and thought, oh, sorry, I'll just find out what the deal is. And she was quite flexible and said, if you're not working after a year, I'll be flexible and let you get out of the lease. And so there wasn't too much to lose in that sense. So I kind of just went for it, and that was 2009.
Wowzers. Well, I mean, what great, some great lessons right there. I mean, for me, and I often say to people, just tell everybody what you're going to do, what you want to do, because you don't know where that could lead to. But if you hadn't have said, I want to open a dance studio, then you probably wouldn't have found that match of somebody that. So I just wonder, absolutely brilliant. And so 2009, so that's 15 years of operation.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Which is again really cool. And again, you may or may not be aware of the stats, but unfortunately, 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years of operation, and the 20% that survive, another 80% of those fail in the following 5 years. So to get to 50, just to get to 10 puts you in the top 4% and gets even better. So really, really well done.
No, thank you.
You're very welcome. But I guess over that period, you've had to overcome some challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to face?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose where we started, I mean, it's quite different to where we are now, really, in reality. So when we first started, we just had one room, so it was quite easy to manage, and I was still freelancing, and I couldn't afford to stop the freelancing, so it was a bit on the side, really. So it was very much kind of a bit like a village hall context, really, where the clients would have a key and they would let themselves in, and I would sort of like keep nipping over and checking everything was okay. And then I gradually started doing a bit more of my own classes there, and then it sort of built quite slowly, but I suppose quite organically. And then where the premises where we are, they ended up having a bit more space available, and that was about 4 years in. And so then we took on a bit of extra space there. And then following again a few years later, another opportunities came to have another larger space, so we took that on as well. So, and that was like a 3 year. Again 3 years later down the line, but in between that, I suppose, because we were then growing things, I was able to bring in some people to help. So I suppose one of the biggest challenges was just juggling it all, because I was trying to do the freelance because I couldn't afford to just do the studio, and then it eventually one surpassed the other, and they sort of swapped over, I suppose. But so I think it was juggling, and I suppose one of the real kind of standout moments for me, I suppose, was when, because I've got 2 children, and the first time I had my first child, I could not get my head around how I was going to run this studio and have a child, like, because I was there 6 days a week. I was doing stupid hours at the start. So learning to delegate and pass that kind of responsibility over to somebody to, I found that really tough, because you kind of have your own ways of doing things, don't you? And until you start to delegate, I think it's quite a big, but I like it my way. So, so it was that was a big kind of mental block for me to get over. But then, of course, once I had the baby, it was kind of like, well, I don't really have that choice. I've got to just get on with it. And then it was fine. And now I love delegating.
Wonderful. It's great to have that driver, isn't it? That you have to, because a lot
Yeah.
of people, as I say, I agree, hold on to way more than they could or should, and it can become the limit to the growth of business. Wonderful. Um, and what would you say you've learned about running and growing a business?
I think one that it's okay to not run like before you walk. I think one of the reasons why we've perhaps still been here so long is because we didn't massively like over I suppose over gamble on things. So like we only grew when we knew we could afford to
Yeah,
literally, without massive loans. We did it because we'd saved up the profits, and then we expanded. So I think that was quite a big kind of thing. Looking back now in hindsight, thinking actually, although it felt quite a slow process, that probably helped us to be where we are because we didn't gamble too much at any one time.
yes,
So we kind of took it quite organically. Um, so yeah, I'd say that's one thing really. I'd say big thing.
brilliant, brilliant. And you're probably aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've had, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
I was thinking about this question because I thought I mentioned that it might come up. So, and I think that there's two people that stood out. So I had a lovely guy called Colin Kemp actually, who I ended up getting through a program with the Institute of Enterprise and Entrepreneurs. And he was really good because I obviously had the team, a very small team that I could bounce ideas off, but it was quite nice to have somebody else that was completely removed. And like I say, I really like to do this, but I can't. And when you're talking things a bit more personal or a bit more about the finance of the business that you might not always necessarily want to, it's difficult conversations or can be with staff, can't it? So there's certain ones that it's
Absolutely.
nice to have conversations where someone's looking at it completely from an outside perspective. And
Yes.
and he was really great to kind of just bounce ideas off and even just to maybe speak things and write things down that then again I've looked back over time and gone, oh gosh, I actually did do that, what I said I was gonna, or what I'd like to do when I was chatting with Colin. So he was really nice to have a soundboard that came in that, like I say, had no kind of personal connection or relationship. So I found that really useful. And then secondly, I'd probably say my biggest thing is my dad. Like he doesn't run his own business, but he does manage staff, and I think a lot of the time if it's a difficult thing or I'm thinking how do I approach that, I sort of think, well, what would he do?
Brilliant.
And I think just the biggest life lesson really, not just in business, but always taught me to treat people how I'd want to be
Yeah.
treated. And I think that has helped me a lot. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. And from either those two people or anywhere else, have you picked up any favourite quotes or sayings about business or life in general?
So I dug out a dance one for you. Had to keep it in
Great. Love
keep
it.
it in. So this is a Martha Graham quote. Who's a very famous choreographer. Great dancers are not great because of their technique. They are great because of their passion. So I thought that kind of resonated with me a bit because I think if you haven't got the passion and the drive, it doesn't matter how good your skills can be. I think that is the foremost thing. So
That's a wonderful quote. I think it's absolutely relevant to business people and entrepreneurs. 100%. It's about the passion, not necessarily the skills or knowledge. It's about having
yeah,
that drive to make it happen. So
yeah.
absolutely wonderful. And I don't know if you do a lot of business reading. Have you got any favorite books around business or success in general?
I read Debbie Moore's actually, who I know I mentioned before was big inspiration for me. She did a book. I found that very insightful. I don't read a huge amount of the business books, I have to say. Maybe I should read more. But I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Ah,
But again, I tend to listen to more like life ones rather than
yeah,
specifically business ones. And I find, it's just quite reassuring listening to people's stories sometimes, isn't it? To go, oh, actually, I'm completely normal. Somebody else is also having that headache as a business owner, or as a parent, or someone trying to juggle
absolutely.
life, business, and things like that. So I tend to sort of listen to those, if anything. But
Brilliant.
yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and one of the things they said was, like business success doesn't go in a straight line, and
Mm,
that's the truth, isn't it? There's always going to be challenges going on, and it's just I think it's accepting that. So
Yeah.
and that's true of life. I mean, life doesn't go in a straight line, but and neither does business, and it's
Yeah.
coming to terms with that. And in terms of learnings, Katie, what would you say you've learned about yourself so far?
I think as I've got a bit more mature in my years, I suppose I think one thing I've sort of a takeaway thing is to actually just having confidence to be sort of solid in your decision making or thought processes, and that actually if you do want to do something, you have got that confidence to just go and do it. You've done it before, so why not again? If that's in a different vein of a different taking the business in a different direction or something like that. But so yeah, I think just I think this life's very short, and I think I think you should just take opportunities to do what you really want to love. And I think just that's probably one of the big things. Just saying, actually, if I want to do something, I've got that behind me. Sometimes
Brilliant,
look back and realize what you have done, and sometimes I don't think we do that very well, do we, as business people? And sometimes it takes the odd person to say a comment to you, and actually it really resonates, and you go, actually I really appreciate that comment, I haven't thought about that, and looking back and things. So so I just confidence to do, to follow what I want to do, I think.
brilliant. I think it's absolutely bang on. You're right in saying that I see so many people and often in a lot of the events we run, we get business people to look back because most entrepreneurial people looking at what they haven't achieved yet rather than what they have. And
Mm.
obviously that's the face we're looking forward. But if we don't, my belief is we need to look back to celebrate the successes to give us that again that confidence, resilience to keep going.
Yeah.
Because without it, all we're looking at is what we haven't done.
Mm.
So I think you're absolutely bang on. But looking forward now, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
I think I mean very much want to kind of carry on what we with what we're doing, and we're very passionate about like sharing dance with all levels of dancers. So a big thing that we'd like to try and do a bit more of is like literally just getting those people that say they just don't have confidence to say go to the disco on a night out, and just going, actually let's just give you some fundamentals to just see
Brilliant,
in a different light. A bit we're working on, and then
brilliant.
dance and health. There's a lot obviously on physical obvious benefits, but there's a huge amount with the mental health benefits. So that's another avenue we might be looking at, possibly with dad's group. So there's some like peer support, through coming doing a dance class together, and there's sort of a group empowerment there, and different things like that. And then in terms of challenges, I suppose the biggest thing is when you've got factors that are a little bit outside of your control. So for us, I suppose it's we lease a building, so it's kind of like thinking what's the future with that, and
Yeah,
will things change with that? And the area we're in is kind of like evolving quite a bit. So I suppose that's a challenge that I need to kind of think about how we approach that. And
yeah,
but yeah, so that's yeah.
brilliant, brilliant. And what would you say to anyone that was thinking of going to business right now, Katie?
I'd say if you really want to do it, then do it. I
Brilliant.
wouldn't say necessarily it's easy. I think don't look at doing your own business as an easy route necessarily, but I think the rewards outweigh the negatives of doing it. I think you've got to be prepared to put in, certainly at the beginning, a
Yeah,
lot of hours to maybe get it to a place where it's a little bit more chilled out and you can have teams and delegate and things. But ultimately, if there's something you're really passionate about and you'd really like to do, then you're the only person that's stopping you doing it, really.
yeah,
I think you just got to grab it and go for it, and look out for those little opportunities that that could just pass you by if
brilliant,
yeah.
brilliant. And if you started again, is there anything looking backwards? Is there anything significant you do differently? Do you think?
I'd probably do a bit more planning. It's like I
Right.
say, when I took, like it was about 4 or 5 day sort
That's
of
good.
like, oh let's a thought and a vocalization of an idea to going, oh I've just signed a lease. So I think definitely more planning, because at that point I literally had this document of a tenancy agreement, and I had no business name, I had no like business plan, and like I say, I'm not saying this is the way you should do it, but this is definitely something that should have been done. But in hindsight, if I thought about it too much? Would I have walked away and overthought it? Possibly. So I think, yeah, but definitely a little bit more planning.
Brilliant, brilliant. And finally, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that?
I think I would say don't listen to people that tell you can't, or don't listen to people that, put it down. I mean, I remember one teacher at my high school, and, with the A levels, and you talking about your university career paths, and I was saying, oh, I want to go and do dance, and oh, what do you want to do that for? That's a waste of time, and, sort of thing. And maybe for a certain amount of population that study dance, maybe not everyone ends up going into dance as an element of a point there, maybe from his perspective, but at the same time that was a bit of a driving thing for me as well, then to go, actually, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so so I think, if anybody sort of says you can't or puts you down, and you can and you really want to do it, then don't listen to them.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I was told some time ago, and I really like it. They said if somebody said you can't do it, what they're actually saying is they can't do it. Doesn't mean we can't do it, because
Yeah.
and I think that's really relevant. It's fine that you can't do it, but that don't tell me what I can and can't do.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, Katie, that's been fascinating, and congratulations on everything you've achieved to date. And it'd be great to swing by another 6 to 12 months and just see how things have developed, especially with some of these new initiatives you've got going. But for now, anyone that's watching that would like to get in touch with you or the dance studio, what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can check out our website, which is thedancestudioleds.com. You can drop us an email. It's info@thedancestudioleds.com, and we're on Instagram, Facebook. So yeah, check us out.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, as I say, it'd be great to speak to you again in a little while. But for now, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Pleasure.